Ay, sorry, may nagasulat pa dali na get class. Sano ka mo ma face-to-face classes? Wala pa, advice?
Wala pa miss kahatag specific date pero subong miss ang USG ga collect na sa laming data ka mga numbers ka students nga vaccinated, unvaccinated, mga amo na miss.
Okay. Kasi mag face-to-face, hindi na ako ka-teach sa inyo. Kaya, busy na ako sa office. Okay, dali ka dali lang. Nagasulod pa. Okay. So, okay. Makita niyo yung gina-share ko? Makita niyo hindi?
Hindi miss.
Nakita. Wala na? Okay na?
Ar subong miss okay na miss. Yes.
Okay. So we'll first discuss updates in lab safety and chemical management. Okay, di ba supposedly lab ni siya na ano na time. Sorry. Okay. So, part 1 is achieving a safe and productive laboratory environment. And why is safety important? Because it is the requirement of the law. Ano kami di class, ISO 17025 accredited, and at the same time, DNR recognized na laboratory. So far, we are the only one in Region 6. So we are compelled to abide sa ilang mga safety rules and also permittings. Grabe nga, permits, no? Pati ang genset may permit, waste management. Tapos you are also obliged to have a pollution control officer. And during audit, their main focus really is about safety in reference to the staff's ano ni siya, welfare. Okay. And also, it has financial implications, di ba? Kaya kung permila may accident sa lab, permila ang employer nagagasto. Okay. Next, it's the analyst or the staff desire to work, of course, in a safe environment. And it is the moral responsibility not to endanger other people. So, amo to siya example, no? Ang theory, wala nga ang virus nag-leak sa lab. Okay, so now we'll go now to the safe working area. So we have the laboratory room, the working bench, amo ni siyang inyong ginaobrahan. Then, of course, you have your emergency exit, and it is required for um, emergency exit plan and evacuation daw map na siya bala sa lab posted in in a place na visible to all. Next, fume hood is also a must, and also sink and drainage, especially when you are observing proper waste management, no, laboratory waste management. Anong waste ang pwede uh, ano na siya, maula down the drain, no? We'll also discuss that when we are into waste management. And also very important is ventilation. Then for the lab safety equipment, it is a must that every chemical laboratory should have a laboratory safety manual. This is a requirement of PRC, no? Philippine Regulations Commission, when they are giving certificates, compliance certificates to chemical laboratory because it is requirement of the chemistry law. Next, safety shower, of course, is part of the lab safety equipment. Then you have the eye wash station. Let's be reminded nga ang eye wash, hindi lang siya simple nga eye wash lang. Mayroon din siya requirement what kind of water should be used, no? And also ano ang flow rate, like the safety shower. So be able also to be familiar with flow rates, no? And also the quality of water that should be used in the safety shower and the IWAS station. Later, we will know about it. Next, fire extinguisher in the lab, no? Okay, so during the first time, bala nga gin-tour kamo ni Sir Regine sa lab, have you noticed na may colors na mo na fire extinguisher? May green ang lapis sa AES, and then red ang arat na niya sa guwasong lab. Okay, so also, no, in the next slides, you will know what fire extinguisher should be used in a specific room na sa lab where special activities are undertaken. Next, the lab should have a fire blanket. Also, fire alarm and closest alarm in the hallway. First aid kit, of course, telephone and emergency number. The last time that we were audited, mayara kami non-compliance because ang phone bala aklas, ang telepono bala nga yan sa mga PLDT na bala di cellphone should have emergency numbers, no, na naka-paste, no, those stickers like fire department, what else, hospitals, no, dapat nakabutang na siya sa office phone na or sa anywhere na sa inimal nga lab if ever sa school. Next, we have the, of course, the chemical spill kit. You should also understand what should be inside a chemical spill kit. Next, of course, telephone. Okay, so why do accidents happen in the lab? Most often, it's gross negligence, no? Carelessness, unsafe experiments. So be able always to read first the methods and the chemicals required and be able to check the safety data sheets for the chemicals that you will be using. Habasi makibot na mayara nagali reaction. Next, inadequate equipment. Misbehavior also is a cause for lab management. Inadequate safety training sa laboratory, especially in service lab, it is required for the laboratory to have a safety training every year for the staff. Updating also in reference to safety. Next, inadequate instructions, no, o kung sa school na environment, sa professor, no, and also sa supervisor when it is in service laboratory. Next, overcrowding. This is now a no-no, especially under the new normal. So I just wonder if there will be a face-to-face na kung ano ang densities ng students, ang stacking density kung sa isda pa. How many students are there per square meter? Okay, now next, inadequate facilities, of course. Synonymous to inadequate equipment. Then we have inadequate preparation. As I have said, always read procedures first. Visit the files of the safety data sheets, no, in reference to the chemicals that you will be using as stated in the procedure. And here, this is also non-forgivable ignorance. So kung may question ka mo, class along, ano lang ka mo ha, ask questions ha. So, how do you manage lab safety effectively? ensure objectives are met and to seek improvement. So there should be a yearly review no, of the manual and also the procedures and especially the SOPs no, operating procedures. Next, the safety policy of the lab. No, it is the policy of the lab not to eat inside. That's commitment of the management in improving safety. So, who is the management? So, ang school, kung sa school environment, sila na ang mga deans, no? Upper management, ang higher than the deans. Kung sa office naman niya, ang lab supervisor, lab managers. Okay? Define the policies or the operating standard operating procedures, no? Shall define the areas of responsibility sorry, sir, of the staff in order to promote safe working environment for students. Next, reviewed and it should be revised regularly. So there should be an annual review no, of the policies, of the standard operating procedures, no, and the manual itself used in the lab because it is like a Bible, no, ang manual. Next, the safe working area. Okay, purpose is creation of a better working environment. And who is responsible? No? Siyempre, ang mga staff, ang management. Um, reduction of loss of working hours and reduction of loss of money. Next, reduction of loss of equipment and material if you are implementing the laboratory safety guidelines. And it is required by law. So, for registered chemists and chemical technicians, there is now in the law, no, ang hazard pay. Meaning, depende sa number of hours na exposure sa lab. So, if you are into 8-hour exposure, like analyst ka na for 2 hours, 8 hours, uh, the company should give you, it's mandatory, 2,400, I think, pesos a month on top of your monthly salary. But then, kung half day ka lang yung exposure mo, depende na sa company if tagaan ka half or the whole. So, it's again, the company's prerogative. Okay? Next, know your surroundings, no, when you are in the lab. Know where the fire alarm is. Tapos, gina-require man na class ng may, ano na siya ni, the fire drill bala, no, every year, no, okay, sulit because there are new staff, there are incoming staff. So, diri sa amon, yearly na siya ang fire drill. Kay tapos, during inspection, ang certificate, no, from the fire department, napangita na siya. Next, okay, know your surroundings under new. Okay, many labs contain hazardous substances. It is defined as a material or substance that poses a physical or health hazard. So it includes both chemical and biological agents, specifically pathogens, no, pathogenic um, organisms. So with here, biohazard is defined as any organism that is capable of replication and is capable of causing disease in human, animal, or plant. So an example of a biohazard is a toxin, di ba ang mycotoxins, no, produced by molds, no. And one example of that is aflatoxin B1. It is very potent. It is a very potent carcinogen, and it is not destroyed by heat. So as I have said, kung sa group nyo kung naghambal or the other group, there was that was like 15 years ago, the chemist of the Bureau of Animal Industry in Manila. They are analyzing aflatoxin in feeds, no? And later, nag-develop to nag-swell ang brain kay ano na siya gani ng chronic exposure to sublethal levels of aflatoxin B1. Kaya so that's why kinahanglan gyud gyapon ang observance and safety, especially if you are dealing with hazardous substances. Especially kay chemistry ka mo. So dapat gyud i-protect yourself niyo. Na kay life is short. Damo na sa mga chemist na cancer. Okay, so know your surroundings. Under that, a health hazard no, has the following characteristic. It is a carcinogen, toxic or highly toxic. It can be reproductive. It can be the group of reproductive toxins. No, examples are the teratogens. Now, those substances that are able to affect the fetus, no, the developing fetus. Ako gani class ang amo na lab, hindi pa ya amo na siya ka well ventilated before. Gamay lang ang lab namon. Tapos nag stillbirth, 5 months pa lang ang baby sa womb, nagwa na siya, patay na pagwa. Kaya nadumduman ko Friday na siya ben, nagtimpla kami sang preservatives for the shrimps kay ipadala sa Hawaii. Ang mga chemicals na ginadeal namon, ito man, formalin, ethyl alcohol, kag acetic acid. Tapos combine siya tanan, babaho, siya pagka Sunday, nag-forced labor ko. Kaya muna siya natabo sa akin. Then, ang iba naman nga, ang iba kong staff, tag-isa lang duwa ang bata because nagkakahulog before sa lab to naman nga daan. So, that is an example of a scenario bala nga dapat, grabe dapat ang observance and safety, no, implementation of the safety practices sa lab. Tapos ang isa ko naman ka staff, ang iyan na baby, hapuon. Though 7 months lang nag-labor na siya, tigan incubate siya for 2 to 3 weeks para mag-full term. Muna. Okay, so going back here, irritants, no? It could be what kind of skin irritant or it could be a respiratory irritant. Next, corrosives. Synthesizers, no, hepatotoxins, nephrotoxins, no, able to damage the kidneys. Liver, no, neurotoxins, no, the nerves. Next, physical hazards. Under that, we have explosives, flammables, oxidizers, pyrophoric, organic peroxides, compressed gases, combustible liquids, and unstable or reactive substances, and also those that are water reactive. So, any questions so far? Okay, so when yes, my question.
None, miss.
Okay. Next, when physical hazards and health hazards exist, it is very important to know where the eye wash is and the location of the safety shower. May ano man kami, may arap man ko bala class na experience kaya sa school, especially sa una panahon namon nga school, ang lab namon wala niya sang safety shower. Next thing na again is sa nag-work na ko na, ang DNR nga staff from Manila, nagkipangitaan kami sa eye wash. Wala gi kuya kabalo ko na siya eye wash. Tagaan na bon ay mo. Grabe ka dlaw sa sa auditor. Tagariya mo na tsura sa eye wash. So imagine, sa time na mundo, hindi kami aware sa mga, depende man naguro sa teacher, no? So ay, kinalanded na updated ka mo. So, amo ni siya ang safety shower combined and also the eye wash here. Ang yellow. Okay. Next, Of course, the emergency fire blanket. Then next, the emergency here, eye wash and shower, and the first aid kits. And we have here the fire extinguishers. And here, ang lab layout, no, indicating the row during emergency. So, dapat posted, gina siya sa laboratory nga makita sang tanan. And also, the staff should be familiar with this. Next, we go to fire extinguisher. Minimum of one located at every door in the lab. So, example, if there are four separation, so units separated, so four ka rooms, isa ka lab, tapos may isang sub rooms, no? The mga small rooms within the big lab. Each small room should have also a fire extinguisher. So minimum of one located at every door in the lab. Requirements, properly signage storage place. So dapat nakabutang yun na sa babaw of fire extinguisher. Signs must be visible from everywhere in the lab, must meet the requirements of the lab, must be checked according to local regulations, especially yearly. Kaya basi kung wala na bala unod, no? And it should be also easily accessible. Tapos meron din di kami gina-require kami sang regulatory agency. Nabutang na din sang doc card. Tapos i-inspect siya monthly, no? Ilag mo na da ko na September 30. No, tapos inspected by amo na kauti ko na sa analytical lab. Next, we go to classes of fire. So for class A, these are the fires of solid or fires due to solid organic materials. Examples are wood and paper. For class B, fires of liquid materials like alcohol, oil, paraffin. And for class C, we have the hydrogen, methane, acetylene. And for class D, metals, aluminum, sodium, and potassium. So be also uh, familiar with the classes of fire. Okay, so okay, we're done with this. Okay, here. Emergency shower, the flow rate must be minimum of 30 liter per minute. Tapos gina-check man ni siya class weekly. Kaya basi bala ang quality ng water, especially, di ba, basiwa, ta? Kasi pag kinanlanon mo na ang tubig, pag ano mo, pag pull mo ni ang nagwa, puro tanan do kape yung color ng tubig, no? So this must also be checked. And meron man na siya card sa kilid. Must not shut off automatically manual. Must be checked monthly, weekly. Should be of here. Take note of this. The water of the emergency shower should be of drinking water quality. Hindi nga daw kape, no? Nga halin sa basiwa.
Miss, question, Miss Kadala. Ang sa emergency shower bala, Miss, ano to siya, Miss, na ginambal mo yung kaginamis nga mga flow rate?
Ano? 30 liter per minute.
Oh, okay. Flow rate? Gali, Miss. Sorry, sala pag-isindi ko. Thank you.
Ano yung paisindi mo?
Flow rate, Miss, as in F-L-U-O-R-A-T-E nga flow rate. Flow rate. Gali, sorry.
Flow rate. Okay. Gala, ipi ako matsyag mo. Ginaano ko ginasipos. Next, eye wash fountain. So provide eye wash fountains inside the lab. Wash your eyes, avoid that the chemical will contaminate the rest of your lab. Again, take note, don't reuse open wash bottle. Replace them with, kaya dapat diba kung eye wash, sterile ang imo na tubig. Next, ventilation. Okay, so this is should be with exhaust, blower, and filter also. The fumes must must be sucked out in cases of nang may na accidental din na open ang isa ka chemical na fuming. So dapat um ang ano ni siya, ang capacity to exhaust no the whatever the gas no should be efficient. Next, we have the first aid kits. No? Okay. So when there are chemical, biological, or radioactive agents being used, an emergency spill kit should be available. Next, as I have told you, no, dapat ang phones should have the emergency contact number should be posted sa phone. Butangan sa emergency contact numbers. Nga, babi may emergency, tapos iyaw ka papangita kung anong numbers ng hospital, no? Anong numbers. So, dapat may ara na nakabutang. Okay, so know what hazards are present in the lab. Okay, very important also is the PPE, no, equipment that is necessary to protect from hazardous and biohazardous materials. Okay, so you are already familiar with the PPEs in the lab. So Google's. Next, okay, so when to use biological agents as well as VR, DNA. Nakakuha na ka mo class biochemistry.
Sa Sininga
Ah,
College, miss, wala pa, miss.
so, gipakita sa inyo ni Sir Reginio ang amon nga biomolecular section na may PCR, but it's not for COVID, it's more on shrimp viruses. Kaya kung COVID, puro wala na kami din. Okay, containment of the agent or material and proper handling techniques are best methods for minimizing risks that are associated with biological hazards. So when you are sa ano nga subject industrial micro, you can witness PCR analysis. Okay, so appropriate eye protection must be worn at all times. Next, sino nag-lab gown? Di nga wala ginabutones ang lab gown. It's improper, no? Your clothing should cover your legs to the knees. Shorts are not appropriate for the lab. Lab aprons can be used to protect good clothing. So it serves as the primary barrier. Next, loose clothing should not be worn because it may dip into chemicals or fall into a flame and catch fire. Kaya naman kami, ano sa una, staff, na grabe, ganyan class siya mag-abot siya sa office, sa lab, naka-long sleeve. Naka-long sleeve, ganyan siya, TK, ano siya sa micro. Siyempre, di ba kung micro, may ara ka na isang alcohol lamp, TK, nag-plating ka mo, nag-analyze ka bacteria, di ba? So, familiar ka mo sa mag-check sa mga total bacterial count, di ba? So, kinandan mo na alcohol lamp para i-sterilize mo ang ano na tawag, hockey stick na nga ginagamit mo sa micro. Tapos, ang iyang ang iyang what's this? Ang iyang sleeves nasunog. Nasunog kaya wala pa gyud siya nag-lab gown. Next, wear shoes that cover your feet. So, hindi pwede niyo, no? Dapat, ano ni siya dapat. Next, okay, choose always the right size for you, no? If it is too big or too small, it is not right for you. Nakakabudlay mag-iho kung hello or small. Okay, so these are the PPEs needed when you are working with biological agents. Okay? So, safety glasses, no lab coat. Okay. Personal habits. Okay. It is a common rule that you do not eat, drink, smoke, or no in the lab. Do not store food or beverages in the lab or in a chemical refrigerator. Do not mouse pipette. Pero as I've told you, sa amo na chimpo sa lab sa school, mouse pipette, wala kami kabalo nga may aspirator. Oo, tapos may amo na kami sa teacher namon. Okay, so wash hands before leaving the lab or after handling contaminated material. So I would say that in those years, sa time namon, siguro failure, di kami yan sa lab safety. Kaya ang school nga daan, wala agad. Okay, do not apply cosmetics, eat or drink in the lab. Tapos hindi man pwede ang jewelries ng mga sing-sing, di siya pwede. Especially when you are in the micro lab. Next, dangling hair can fall into the Bunsen burner and catch fire or can fall into a chemical solution. We also have experienced this in school. Kaya ang amon before, mga Bunsen burner, wala pa na hot plate. So, common na ang gas source ng ang classmate ko during nag-AnalChem man to nambod. Tapos nag-flame na bi ang Bunsen burner ganhuyop niya paghuyop niya nakado sa face niya nasunog ya kilay. Ay, kadamo sa mga experiences before because of inadequate na information no, and adequate facilities. Next, work with volatile chemicals under a fume hood. Tapos may requirement man na class ang fume hood. Later, you will know kung ano na siya ang SAS height, kung ano na should be the distance between the analyst and the inside of the hood. Next, do not smell any chemicals directly. You know, if absolutely necessary to smell, use your hand to fan the vapor to your nose. So, amo ni siya ang correct way. And do not pipette solutions by mouth because there is a rubber suction valve na. Or better, this one, no, automatic pipette. Na-discuss na ninyo, di ba? Ang air displacement pipette, ang positive displacement. So note details, location of your vital lab information. That's why there should be also a manual. Next, each lab contains an emergency action plan which is required for emergency situation. Okay. Um, okay, so in the chemical laboratories, a chemical hygiene plan, or CHP in short, is similar to the hazard communication program, but this is specifically for chemical laboratories. Okay, this is to relay information regarding procedures. So it contains standard operating procedures, no, the equipment, how to handle the equipment, no, in reference to safety, the PPE, and the work practices that are capable of protecting the employees from health hazards. Okay, so here, for those labs, no, especially chemical labs, trainings no, must be addressed with specifically on the methods and observations that may be used to detect the presence or release of hazardous chemicals, the hazards, be it physical or health. It should also state no the measures and the risk no ang risk go sa employees no and also ang details of the CHP. Okay, science and labeling also very important. Okay, the most dangerous substance is the one that has no label. So what will you do, no? Kung by I don't know if it's teka, um paano na siya kung ang chemical, for example, nasimpon do sa storage cabinet na wala siya ngalan. So what would you do? Do not assume that it is this chemical, no? Or um, uh, always classify it as a dangerous substance. So hindi na dahil paggamiton kaya wala ka makapalo kung anong ngalan. Okay. So why do we have to label? No, because it should in the lab there should be effective communication system. See here, labeling is also required for chemicals that are in a secondary container unless it is to be used within an 8-hour period. So these are usually the reagents that you prepare, di ba? Example, sodium hydroxide, then nag-prepare ka da 0.5 molar. So that 0.5 molar that you prepared is already a reagent. So it should also be properly labeled. And with the concentrations also placed in the label, including the one who prepared the chemicals and sign it, and also the date it was prepared. And it should be reflected in the reagents logbook. Dapat kung paano nyo na siya timpla ang chemicals, naka-reflect na siya sa reagent logbook with the date, no, and also the grade of the chemicals. Ano na siya timpla nyo, AR grade, chemical grade, no? Next. Okay, so here, biological hazards or biohazard should also be labeled, especially if it is a bacterial culture, no, of a known species, known. So, for example, the E. coli, no. So, butang mo that biohazard, this one, the sign. Then precautions must use eye protection, lab coat, only used under the BSC or the Biosafety Cabinet. Okay, signs are a way of communicating important information. It is a way to heighten awareness about hazards that exist. It is a way of communicating if you understand. Siyempre kung ano ng sign. Like for this one, di ba? Kung wala siyang alam, di nga biohazard, tapos mo lang na siya, ang iya lang, nga, tawag mo sini, ang diagram na siya, ang nag-appear. So, paano na kung hindi ka kabalo nga sign usually isang biohazards? Again, no, the label should be complete. Or you should also be familiar with the signs. There may be signs on lab refrigerators reminding you that no food or drink can be stored in it. So no food allowed, no? There may be radioactive or biological materials that could possibly be absorbed in food. Okay? Now, if there's a visitor na in the lab, before they enter the lab, they should be oriented. No? Okay na kung wala sa mga biohazards, no? Okay na siya, but it should be an SOP that they should be um, oriented kung ano ang activities sa lab. Next, we have the SDS or the safety data sheets. There are several constituents that are covered in the lab standards. So among these constituents include labeling and the SDS. Before it is MSDS, the material safety data sheet. But now it's only SDS or the safety data sheet. Okay, so the next most important type of communication regarding hazards is the SDS. What is it? No, it is a document that relays vital information about certain chemicals and biological agents. Usually, this is supplied or given by the supplier of the chemicals that you are ordering. Or it can also be found in the internet, in the website of the supplier. So you have to download lang. Next, we have here lethal dose 50. So it is the amount of a substance that when administered by a specific route of entry, so either it's oral or skin absorption, over a specified period of time, it is expected to cause or damage 50% of the test population. So LD 50. So it is expressed in milligram per kilogram. So here, the smaller the number, the more toxic the substance is. Why is it? What do you think? Why is the smaller the number? Like 0.1 milligram per kilogram ang LD15 niya. Anybody? Nga ang the smaller the number, the more toxic is it? Bethel,
Yes, pwede ko pa-repeat ang question, Miss.
Ario, smaller the number is, the more toxic the substance is. So it is expressed, ang unit niya is milligram per kilogram. So which is more toxic, 0.1 milligram per kilogram or 1 gram per kilogram?
Ang 0.1 milligram is kay small siya, Miss. The more toxic sa Miss.
Okay. Nakakibot ka mo ga question ko. Okay, next we have the sorry. Threshold limit value. Or sometimes the TWA, it is an 8-hour time-weighted average believed to be the average concentration to which most workers can be exposed during an 8-hour workday, day after day without harmful effects. So TLV. This is also included, no, the values of a chemical is also included in the safety data sheet. Next, so this is the LV threshold limit value. The one here is the time weighted average. And next, we have the short-term exposure limit. So it means a 15-minute exposure. Ceiling, which is C is the maximum concentration never to be exceeded. So, amo na siyang pinaka-limit niya, in other words, no? When it comes to chemical concentration and toxicity of the chemical. So, kung napanitkas sa its material data sheet, but later, skip ko na lang ni kay gusto ko lang ipakita sa inyo ang sa una nga material data sheets. It is supplied by suppliers. It is a legal obligation, must be accessible to workers in the workplace, must be kept up to date. So it must be replaced, no, and must be updated every 3 years. So skip tani kay i-discuss naman ni karon gyapon dito sa SDS. Pero mabalik lang sa DF, hindi to siya masakpan. Okay, next. Chemical storage. Don't store in fume cupboards or hood. Siyempre, no, ay ang fume hood, hindi man na storage place. Next, chemicals must be stored according to their hazard categories, never alphabetical. So, acetic acid plus acetaldehyde is a no-no. Copper, so that siya dapat sa alphabetical. Because all of this can cause explosion or exothermic reaction. So in other words, chemical must be stored or arranged according to their compatibilities. And you must know that dapat kay, di ba, ma-chemist na kamo. Grabe ba? Ma-chemist na kamo. Okay. Next, safe handling explosion hazard generated by slow generation of a combustible solvent air mixture caused by leakage or untight closure of the solvent bottle inside the fridge. So again, kung magbutang ka mo sa mga chemicals inside the fridge, again, see to it na pwede siya bila ibutan. Ano ang mga potential hazards that can occur kung ibutan nyo da siya, no? Especially the ones that are hygroscopic. Okay, so muna siya ang example of an accident caused by um, slow generation of combustible mixture. So here, don't store in fume hoods. Don't store chemicals on shelves above the take note plaza above the eye level. Now, don't store chemicals on shelves no, above the eye level. Don't store flammable liquids in an ordinary fridge. Don't keep all bottles immediately accessible, especially flammable liquids. So keep it in a room which everybody can access. Sa mundi mera kami staff who in charge sa some chemicals, no, siya nag-inventory, siya man nag-check if expired na or not, siya man nag-request kung kulang. So this is not amon man ni hood. And then siya pwede, no, do not store chemicals inside the hood. And don't have corroded chemical packages or in safety cabinets. Now we go to treatment and dispose of chemical waste in daily lab work. Do not dispose chemicals to the water drainage. So this is actually a real incident, no? An explosion occurred at a college lab, injuring 9 students over the weekend. It took place when a researcher identified as Cho, kay teoryan siya mo, conducted a chemical experiment at a laboratory in Hanjiang University. So it is expected that phosphorus pentachloride and water caused the explosion. Again, no, when dealing with chemicals, especially ara sa inyong methodology, always visit or check the safety data sheet of that chemical before commencing your or starting your work. So we go to waste management. Waste can be classified as either hazardous or biohazardous. Okay, so for hazardous waste, no, um, it contains the characteristics of being, take note, any of the following. So any of the following, any waste having the characteristics of any of the following is a hazardous waste. So it's toxic, it's corrosive, it's ignitable, flammable, and also it is an oxidizer. Next, biohazardous waste is any waste that is considered infectious. So this includes recombinant DNA or rDNA and other genetically altered organisms and agents. So how do you dispose the waste, no? So you will have to classify the waste as infectious and non-infectious. So if a biohazard labeled bag is used, make sure it is either placed in a secondary bag or completely a new bag that is not read my coding class. Okay, so this is more on micro. Okay, how do you contain biohazardous waste? No, so of course you should have an established SOP or standard operating procedure for handling of those waste, and you should have containment equipment and also special laboratory design. So you should have a biosafety cabinet or a BSC cabinet. And these are the primary barriers. We have the primary barriers. So these are the equipment necessary to achieve compliance and most importantly to provide adequate protection. So we have two equipments classified as the primary and secondary barriers. Okay, the primary barriers are referring to PPEs, no? Engineering controls like fume hoods. So this includes only PPE and that has already been covered, but it also includes safety cabinets, fume hoods, vaccines. In, in when you are in the biolab and autoclave. So these are the primary barriers. It is important to know when this equipment is to be used and how to properly use it, especially fume hoods and autoclaves also. Okay, so barriers, primary barriers besides the PPE. So you have here the fume hood, the biosafety cabinet, and the autoclave for the microlab. Autoclave nodes used for sterilizing. Okay, so we don't have to explain this one. If you would, kabalo naman ka muna. Okay, common, sorry, chemical hood misconception. While it is important to have a phase velocity between 100 and 125 ano ang F flow per minute, velocities higher than this are actually harmful. So dapat ang iyang ganyang phase velocity is 100 to 125. That's why ang fume hood class gina-calibrate man na siya annually, no, to see to it that the phase velocity is within the recommended range. Next, hoods are not designed for permanent chemical storage. No, of course. Each place on work surfaces interferes with the directional airflow. So kung may mga chemicals kung mo ang pambilin, tapos during that time na nag-obra ka mo, it could affect the direction of the airflow, causing turbulence and currents that allow contaminants to be drawn out of the hood. So this is also a no-no. Okay. Next, airfoils are critical to efficient operation of a chemical hood. Ang sash, balaan mo na siya ang nablang daw door nga up and down, up and down. So with the shells open, an airfoil smooths flow over the hood edges. So dapat may arat na siya nga sash height nga recommended. And it should be also included in the calibration of the hood. So this is the SAS. Amo na siya balang sakat naog. And this is the airfoil. You have here the baffles. In here the exhaust plenum. No? So sash, no, airflow across the hood can be adjusted by the SAS na height to the point where capture of contaminants is maximized. So amo ni siya ang function sa SAS or the door, no, na balang sakat naog. Ang function naman sa baffles, this one, is to keep the airflow uniform, no, across the hood opening. That's eliminating dead spots and optimizing capture efficiency. So kada parts may ara siya nga specific purpose. Now this airfoil here, it is preventing the creation of turbulent eddies that can carry vapors out of the hood. No? The space below the bottom provides source of room air for the hood to exhaust when the sash is fully closed. Next, we have here the exhaust plenum. This is an important engineering feature. No? It helps to distribute airflow evenly across the hood face. So, muna siya ang function sa exhaust plenum. And the face, the imaginary plane running between the bottom of the sash to the work surface. So, it's imaginary. Ang ano di ba daw ang space, the hood face velocity is measured across the plane. So dapat di ba 100 to
Miss, excuse me, hindi ka bation, miss? Ang makita lang naman, miss, ang slide, pero imo tingog, hindi naman mabatian.
okay na? Okay na?
Okay na, miss. Yes,
Okay.
this time, miss, okay na. Thank you.
Okay, so BSC, the difference between the fume hood and the BSC cabinet is that the BSC has a HEPA filter in the exhaust system. This is to protect the environment and also yourself. So the HEPA filter is a high efficiency particulate air filter that is able to remove particles at with a size as small as zero point 0.3 microns with an efficiency of 99.97% no removal efficiency niya. So it is also able to remove the smaller and the larger particles. Sama ni siya ang samples ng BSC. Ano mo na siya class ang ginagamit sa molecular laboratories na sa mga COVID laboratories. There are three classes that are used. The higher the risk group and the biosafety level, the higher the class of the cabinet that is used. So may siya BSC1, BSC2, 3, 4. So if there is an infectious agent, whether it is used in research animals or culture, it must be manipulated or you must work no, under the BSC cabinet. So of course, no, you are also required to have these PPEs when working in the BSL. Okay? So, for example, di ba, sa water analysis, kinahanglan nyo or sa food, kinahanglan nyo use sometimes sa mga pathogenic organisms like staph aureus, no? Pure culture or E. coli, no? You must not bring contaminated materials. Ang mga materials, di ba lang upod during nag-experiment ka mo, no? Until they have been surface decontaminated. So, dapat hindi siya papag-uod. So, work practices. Again, here, work in such a way that the face is above the front opening. So, take a look at this one. Ari ka di ka pongko. So, dapat above the opening. Above the front opening. Wait for 1 minute after placing hands or arms inside the cabinet to stabilize the airflow because this might also impede the normal airflow. Next, work at least 4 inches, no? Kung sa Fimodia 6, ay 4 inches from the inside edge of the front of the grill. Okay, remember to place all materials as far back in the cabinet as possible and limit also the storage within the cabinet. Next, we have the autoclave. Amo gini siya ang pinaka-important na equipment na dapat ara sa microlab. So this is used to uh, decontaminate sa mga materials and also to sterilize all labwares that were subjected to maging gamit yung bala sa during the analysis. So what is the conditions sa autoclave? It should be 121. Nasulod yun na di ang mga glasswares yung mga dapat sterilize. It should be 121 degrees Celsius at 15 minutes, 15 PSI. Okay, autoclave is sensitive to time, temperature, pressure, water content. Ganun mo tubig glass mo sa may bottom. Type of container being used and the type of waste being sterilized. So, dapat may logbook mo na ang ang autoclave. Okay, so each time it is used, the log must be completed by the individual using it. So, amo ni siya dapat ang ara sa logbook. Kita mo kung nara sa lab ka, OT, dapat OT ka agad. So, date used, sinong analyst nga nagamit, location, time the autoclave reach 121 degrees, or kabasibula dugay-dugay, so something would be wrong. Next, maximum temperature. I-record mo na pressure, and also kung anong sterilize yun da. Next, dapat may ara isang tawag sini ng sterility tape, indicating that the sterilization was done effectively. May sterility tape na ma-change na ang color kung na sterilize na gid mayo ang imo tungagan subject for sterilization. Then wait also of the things that you sterilize and also the person using the autoclave. So the log is required and it must be maintained. Purpose of the log is to ensure that proper decontamination is taking place. So again, when you are in a laboratory, dapat every thing must be documented. Kaya kung wala na siya na document, meaning it did not happen. So, dapat may evidence kagad class nga, ay gina mo, na-sterilize na mo, bla bla. Kay kung may mga auditor, kung wala ka mo evidence, hindi na magpati. So, it will be another non-compliance. Okay? Next, we're done with the primary barriers. We go to the secondary barriers. So it's the facility design. Okay, secondary barriers are the facility design and construction. These barriers are to provide protection for the individuals outside the lab, the community, and also the environment. Okay, so we go to the contamination. Okay, so this includes sterilization, of course, no, using an autoclave and disinfection. It is a process no, of removal no, or neutralization of toxic agents or the use of physical and chemical means to remove, inactivate, or destroy living organisms. So, amo ng decontamination. Gina-take up to ni class because you also have a subject na industrial microbiology. So, sa, I think sa third year na siya. So, ginaupod ko na lang di sa lab safety. Kaya mas malipatan kung hindi din ako teacher. Next, decontamination is the responsibility of all lab workers. Okay. Now, chemicals that can be effective method of decontamination. So for most organism, a 1 is to 100 fluorine concentration for 10 to 30 minutes is adequate. Contact time or bath, no? Okay, but take note that the autoclave is the most effective method to use for the decontamination purposes. Now we go to spills and accident. Okay, so first response to spill should be evacuation, especially if there is a gas or an aerosol, no? Cannot spill sa laboratory. So when a spill occurs, it must be recorded in the spill log. Again, no, kadamo sang mga logbooks, no, may decontamination logbook, may spill logbook, logbooks, may man logbook ang emergency shower, no, kadamo. So the main purpose of the log is to track an exposure in case of future illness or injury, no, when it comes to spills. Okay. Now we go to labels. There are two types. We have the supplier labels and the workplace labels. How is it? Uh, what is the difference? No, for supplier labels are labels that suppliers are required to display on their products. So they are required no, to display. While sorry, the workplace labels, no, these are used by the employers when supplier labels are not available or hindi siya bala sufficient for the purpose. Okay? Supplier labels must appear on controlled products in their original supplier containers. Okay, so we have here also included is the safety data sheet. Pareha mo lang itag no? So, amo ni siyang sample sang supplier label. So, we have your toluene. So, this is the product identifier. Na tapos, it's toluene sulfonic acid. Next, we have the risk phrases. No, highly irritating to skin and eyes and nose. Then you have the health hazard data. It's a strong acid, treat as sulfuric acid. Effects of overexposure is acute. Next, you have your precautionary measures and the first aid. So this is an example of a supplier identifier. And it should also have the address of the supplier. and also the pictograms na kung flammable na siya or toxic, no, or is it corrosive. Okay, so always go to the safety data sheet for this one. Okay, for controlled products packaged in less than 100 ml, only the following is required: the product identifier, the supplier identifier, the hazard symbols, and also the SDS. Okay, labels should be eligible, meaning readable. Now, in the workplace, there are three pieces of information that are required. So you have the product identifier, the precautionary measures, and the SDS. Okay. Now, these are the rules for labeling. For normal day-to-day workplace use, containers must display the three-part workplace label. So, amo to kagina ang requirement for the day-to-day use. Next, for use by one worker on a shift, kinahanglan na lang ang display the product identifier. Then, for immediate use by one worker exempt from any labeling requirement. Okay? Class, familiar ka mo with the GHS?
No, miss.
Wala pa din ninyo na ano, like sa mga seminars, wala niyo pag yun na agyan. Niya, wala pa gyan.
Wala pa ko, miss.
Sige. So, again, concentrate on this. Kaya gagawa na sa board exam, especially ang mga pictograms, okay? So, we're now sa part 2, safe handling of hazardous materials. So, we have here the globally harmonized system of classification and labeling of chemicals. Ang iyang abbreviation is the GHS. So what is it, no? What is GHS? It is an approach to defining and classifying hazards for chemicals, including pesticides. Sorry, this is SDS. Labels and SDS will be changed, no? MSDS. Affected parties are the chemical companies, the consumers, the pesticide applicators, the workers, transport workers, and also the emergency responders. Kada ko sa nila ang lalim pero ano din ba yan na karo si hindi ko na pwede na ang amo na bayran nila mag amo na karon way na chance ila og account na bayran nila file number nga direct tapos ang balon nga sa next nila nga analyze hindi na nato mag-release ang result. Okay, so going back, JHS is a worldwide effort. So it's not only the US, no, it's a worldwide effort to standardize hazardous information in order to enhance the protection of human health. So it's like a communication system class na whatever is the language for chemicals used in the US, amo man na to ang sa EU. And also, ang ideal ng mga standards should be the same, no? That's why it is now globally harmonized. Kaya before, there is a problem. Okay, nakapasaya sa EU yan, tapos sa US siya wala. Amo na bala? So this is the reason for harmonizing. Next, JHS takes a harmonized approach to defining the health, the physical, and the environmental hazards of the chemicals. So kanina, you already have a view, no, on what are the physical hazards and the health hazards. Next, creating classification processes for each hazard. How do you classify, no, the hazards? So this is again under the new JHS. Next, communicating hazard information and protective measures on label and safety data sheets. So the main reason for creating this JHS is for communicating hazard information. Okay, how does the JHS affects us, no? So this new standardized format for safety data sheets and product labels. So there is no a new standardized format for SDS. Okay, so why is it needed? The reason, no country has the ability to identify and specifically regulate every hazardous chemical product. So wala ko sa country na has the ability to identify and regulate. Next, in the US alone, 945,000 there are 945,000 chemical products. And adoption of the GHS will address, no, the concern on safety, health, and environmental issues universally. No, magabagal nga universally, meaning it's accepted anywhere. Okay. So in the US alone, there are many regulatory agencies with different, no, regulatory requirements and also different ways to address the concerns of the different sectors. So we have here the Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Transportation, I think. Then the Occupational, yeah, Safety, Health, um, administration. Um, Next, these agencies were not domestically harmonized, so sometimes it creates confusion. So each has pursued independent regulations differing from one another. And the domestic producers have to classify and label multiple times for the same product. I think lain ang requirement. Example, sodium hydroxide, no? Lain ang requirements ng EPA. Masunod naman na siya sa requirements ng EPA. Also, OSHA naman, lain naman requirements. So, mahimo naman siya label for the OSHA, no? Whereas, if there is JHS, isa na lang. So, what types of products are affected? So, we have here the acid products like the ball cleaners, the lime scale removers, strong alkaline products, and some degreasers, and also before test, floor strippers, disinfectants, and sanitizers. So it is important to know here. Many products used on a daily basis are not classified as non-hazardous and therefore will not have a pictogram. Ato ba lang pictogram sa among example sa mga flammable, karon makita niyo na siya, or signal word associated with it. However, with JHS, makakomply na sa safety data sheets, SDS. So what are the benefits of the GSS? Now, what are the benefits of harmonization? Okay, it states here that countries, international organizations, chemical producers, and the users of chemicals can all benefit. Kaya hindi na sila yung mag-comply sa different agencies. Isa na lang din ang i-comply nila which is accepted by all. Next, Um, Another benefit is enhanced protection of humans in the environment, facilitate international trade in chemicals because what is accepted in the US can now be accepted in the EU or in Australia or wherever in the world. Next, reduce need for duplicate testing and evaluation. So, example, kahit sa una class, abi product na sa US, no, naghambal siya, be 99% pure. Tapos pag abot na to sa EU countries, i-retest naman na nila. Kitilain man itong ila yung requirement, no? Kaya nga, the way of communicating the hazards uh, is not the same, no, with the US because they also have their own criteria. But with the JHS, harmonized the tanan. Next, another benefit is it assists countries and international organizations in the sound management of chemicals. Okay, so principles, the level of protection should not be reduced as a result of harmonization. In other words, ang ang degree na makaprotect dapat ang mga chemicals, no, because of their na mga ano, sorry, ang mga characteristics na contain sa SDS, no, should not be reduced ang ilang level of protection, no, as a result of harmonization. The scope includes both the hazard classifications criteria and the hazard communication tools, which are, of course, labels and the safety data sheets. So changes in all existing systems will be required. So the target audiences include the consumers, the workers, the transport workers, and the emergency responders. So what should be harmonized? Ano ang dapat i-harmonize globally? So okay, label statement, classification criteria, and the label statement for physical hazards, flammability, acute toxicity or health hazards, certain chronic toxicology, and certain environmental hazards, specifically its impact on the aquatic environment. So ano na siya ang scope ng GHS? It includes the hazardous chemical substances and mixtures, also those used in pharmaceuticals, chemicals used as food additives, cosmetics, and pesticide residues. Okay. So the goals are to promote safer transport, handling, and use of chemicals worldwide. Next, another goal is to facilitate international trade in the chemical products by promoting greater consistency in regulatory requirements. And very important is to reduce the need for testing and evaluation. So in other words, ma-reduce man ang cost, no, especially during transport, kaya you don't need to uh, verify or validate, no, ang compositions of product because it's now implementing the JHS guidelines. So we have here the different elements in the GHS. Under classification criteria, it's three: health, environment, and physical. For under the hazard communication, we have the labels and the SDS. So communication, diba? So it's label and the safety data sheets. Okay, so under the health and environmental hazards, we have acute toxicity, skin corrosion, and so forth, no, including germ cell mutagenicity and carcinogenicity. So, in reference to health effects, we have here acute toxicity of the chemical, no, and studies, no, currently required plus respiratory and skin sensitization data. Okay, also chronic toxicity and effects on the reproductive system. So again, here, amo ni sa class ang ginatawag nga pictogram nang gagwa ni sa board exam. So this is the old hazard symbol for explosive under the physical hazards. And then we have the new pictogram. So this is the JHS pictogram for explosives. So take note nga basta puti na siya kag mayara siya sa tawag sina the border nga red is a new pictogram. So explosives are a solid or liquid substance which is in itself capable of chemical reaction. So it is under the group of explosives. They are accompanied by heat production, large changes in pressure, flash, loud noise, and cause damage to the surroundings. Next, so mo na siya, explosive. Another one here, yeah, another example of explosives are the pyrotechnic substance. Self-contained and self-sustained chemical reaction producing heat or light or sound. So examples are the fireworks and safety matches. So dapat may, 'di ba, makita nyo na sa ano sa matches sa ano na tawag, sa do carton may amunio dapat. Next, we have the flammables, and this is the old hazard symbol, and this is the new one, no, the JHS pictogram. So these are substances that will ignite and continue to burn in air if exposed to a source of ignition. So we have here methanol. So magbakal ka mo methanol sa lab, pagitaon yun yung ang JHS. Kung, if the supplier is implementing the or adopting na the JHS. Pero ang mga Merck, no, ang mga large chemical companies, they are already adopting the new JHS. Okay. Now for oxidizers, these are substances a substance generally by providing oxygen cause or contribute to the combustion of other materials. So it can increase fire. And this is the old hazard symbol and this is the new one. Okay, so common oxidizing agents are potassium nitrate, di ba? Iodine and other halogens. Bleaching powder also. Hypochlorites. Next, we have gases under pressure. So, before, wala siya yung old hazard symbol, meaning, this is a new one, no? Kita nyo, may siya yung cylinder. So, it denotes, no, gases, no, under pressure. So, these are contained in a receptacle at pressures not less than 280 kPa at 20 degrees Celsius or as a refrigerated liquid. So, diri na siya mo-fall ang mga acetylene gas na ginagamit sa atomic absorption, spectrophotometers. What else? Nitrous oxide, no? Those are gases under pressure. Okay. So, I think we have to stop sa slide 26. Highlight na ako matiyang. Okay, so slide 26 and we are up to slide 71. Okay, sa next meeting na lang class sa morning we'll do discussion. So after this one we will discuss GLP. Okay, it's more sa laboratory. Sa Agaya, we will do gravimetric analysis or ako, ano yun, nagkaka-mental block na ko, sorry. We will discuss the conventional methods, no, like gravimetry and volumetric analysis. And these are the classical methods. Okay, so goodbye for now. Nagalain ako matiyag. Okay, Nathaniel, any question?
None, miss. Get well soon, miss.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Thank
good
you,
Miss.
miss.
Miss. Get well
Get
soon.
well
Thank
soon,
you.
Thank you,
Miss.
Miss.
So sa next caffeine mangita lang ko ano isang specimen kung ano mas may. Okay? Kaya gusto ko ang sa liquid extraction, the same compound of interest, the same analyte, kay pagkadto tanan sa spectroscopy, the same man gyapon ang ay analyze ta, but the matrix are different. Sa soft drinks naman, sa energy drink, tanawan ta kung ano ang caffeine content. Okay?
Yes,
So, bye.
miss.
Bye, miss.
Bye. Near
Bye,
attendance
Miss.
ta.
Yes, miss, isend ko si mo, miss,
Near,
dala ang attendance ang last.
thank